Okay, picture this. On a ridge just south of Jerusalem's Old City, you got two first-century tombs, sitting just a kilometer apart. One, unearthed in 1980, seems to hold the nuclear family of Jesus, and the other, found way back in 1945, looks like it contains his extended clan. Now, for decades, pretty much every expert just wrote this off as a total coincidence, random, unrelated burials. But what if they're not? What if they're actually two pieces of a much bigger puzzle? A puzzle that could solve a massive mystery from the very day of the crucifixion.
So take a look at this. On one side, you've got the modern Talpiot Ridge. On the other, a map from the 19th century, before modern Jerusalem was even a thing. The two dots mark where the tombs are. Now, for years, the critics' line has been simple. These are just isolated burials, and the names are just a wild coincidence. But what if the archaeology, the ancient Jewish law, and this very map tell a completely different story? A story that says these tombs were never isolated to begin with.
So here's the absolute game changer, the crucial insight. These were not random tombs. No way. The evidence points to them being the family vaults for a single, massive, wealthy agricultural estate. And get this, according to the research, that estate belonged to none other than Joseph of Arimathea. And if that's true, well, understanding that one single fact has the power to reframe absolutely everything we thought we knew about these tombs. It could solve a 2,000-year-old problem.
And you know what? The archaeology on the ground really seems to back this up. When the East Talpiot site was dug up back in 1980, the lead archaeologist didn't just find a tomb. He found a whole lot more. He documented a ritual bath, a mikveh, an olive press, and water cisterns. And his conclusion was pretty clear. All of these things pointed to a single, wealthy estate, and these tombs were the family vaults for whoever owned it.
Okay, so why is this estate so important? To really get it, we have to rewind the clock, all the way back to the hours immediately following the crucifixion. Jesus' followers were facing this huge legal nightmare, a crisis that all came down to the tomb they used for his burial. It's what we can call the problem of the borrowed grave.
So you remember the story from the Gospels, right? Joseph of Arimathea provides a tomb for Jesus. But here's the thing. This wasn't some permanent gift. The Sabbath was coming on fast, so this was a rushed emergency deal. In Jewish law, this has a specific name, a kever sha'ul. It's a borrowed grave, basically a temporary loan of property for a really urgent reason. And let me tell you, this loan came with some seriously strict legal strings attached. The borrower, known as the shohel, had the absolute highest level of liability. The law was crystal clear. You had to return the property to the owner in the exact same condition you got it. And for a tomb, that meant it had to be totally clean, both ritually and physically. You could not leave your dead or anything connected to them on someone else's property. End of story.
Okay, and this is where the crisis gets even deeper. Because Jesus died a violent death, his blood-soaked burial shrouds weren't just seen as simple cloth. Nope, they were legally classified as dam ha-nefesh, the blood of the soul. This sacred blood was considered part of the remains, and it absolutely had to be buried. So, to get that tomb back to its owner completely clean, those highly contagious, ritually impure shrouds had to be moved out immediately.
So now you've got this massive logistical problem, right? How in the world do you transport something that's considered the ultimate source of ritual impurity through the streets of Jerusalem without contaminating everything and everyone in your path? Well, the answer was actually hidden in a brilliant legal loophole found in the purity laws themselves.
You see, Jewish law, or halacha, has this really complex system for dealing with ritual impurity, which is called tumah. Contact with a dead body is like the #1 source of this impurity, and it could spread through contact, making people, places, and things unclean. But, and this is a big but, not all objects were created equal.
Just look at this table. It breaks down how different materials handle this tumah. You've got earthenware, metal, wood. They can all become impure. But then, look at stone. According to the Mishnah, vessels made of stone are permanently pure. They're basically immune. They cannot contract or transmit ritual impurity. And this brilliant little detail is the key to solving the whole puzzle.
So what's the solution? It's actually genius. You take a cheap limestone ossuary, the simple stone box. You put the blood-soaked, ritually impure shrouds inside it, and you seal the lid. This limestone box then acts as what you could call a halachic shield. It locks the most powerful source of impurity safely inside, while the outside of the box stays perfectly, legally pure for transport. Just like that, the law is satisfied, and the borrowed grave can finally be cleared out.
All right, so the legal problem is solved. The shrouds are safely contained. But that just leads to the next big question. Where do you take this sealed stone box for its permanent burial? The answer, it turns out, was hiding in plain sight on a 140-year-old map.
I mean, think about it. Now that they've secured these sacred shrouds, they couldn't just bury them anywhere. They needed a permanent, proper place. And the only logical spot would be a family-owned property. The million-dollar question is, where was it?
This is where this old map becomes so incredibly important. It was drawn by a British explorer named Claude Conder back in the 1880s. What makes it so critical is that it captures the ancient landscape, the hills, the valleys, all the old place names before modern construction completely changed everything. And on this map, Conder wrote down a name for this exact spot.
And here it is, the big breakthrough. Right over the exact ridge where those Talpiot tombs were found, Conder's map explicitly labels the location Arimathea. I mean, this isn't some vague guess. It's a direct geographical link on a map between the story in the Gospels and this specific archaeological site.
And what's really cool is that this makes perfect geographical sense. The original Hebrew name for Arimathea is Ha-Ramatayim, which literally means the two hills. So what's the main feature of the Talpiot Ridge's landscape? You guessed it, it's a landscape of two hills. The name is a perfect physical description of the actual place.
So, let's connect all the dots here. We've got the archaeology pointing to a wealthy estate. We've got the solution to a major legal crisis, and we've got a direct link on a 19th century map. This is how it all comes together to tell one incredible story.
So here are the plans for both tombs. And yeah, they're about a 10-minute walk from each other. But once you see them as part of this bigger Arimathea estate, they suddenly stop being isolated. They become two parts of one single, large family burial complex designed to serve the entire extended family of the owner. And when you look at the names that were actually inscribed on the bone boxes, a really fascinating pattern starts to emerge. The East Talpiot tomb seems to be for the immediate nuclear family, Jesus, his mother Mary, his brother Joseph. But the Sukenik tomb, that one seems to hold the extended clan, including people like Simeon Barsabbas and even ossuaries with these mind-blowing titles like Jesus, Son of God. It really suggests a possible division, one tomb for the biological family and the other for the leadership of this new movement.
So what does this all boil down to? Well, it means that the emergency borrowed grave near the crucifixion site was legally and properly cleared out. It means that the super strict Jewish property law of the time, which looked like an impossible hurdle, was actually followed to the letter. And finally, it means the family's most sacred remains, those blood-soaked shrouds, were brought home to their final resting place on their own family estate in Arimathea.
So this whole framework really seems to solve the legal, the logistical, and the geographical puzzles. The law was satisfied, the family was brought home, but it leaves us with one last massive question. If an ossuary was used not for bones, but for burial shrouds, then what could the forensic evidence from inside these ancient stone boxes possibly tell us?